The Loaf. This is relatively not planned, but I tie a lot and figure I should do something about it. I tried to go live at tying night a couple nights ago, and it was the first time I'd done it, and it said I had to wait 24 hours. And then I just put a sex dungeon video up, and for the life of me, I can't figure out why the wide angle it's all choppy, and I've re-rendered it, and so looking at live, it's just like there's some degree of engagement, even though it's just me talking, but it's just me talking at a screen normally. And then I can just have this thing up, but certainly more of a trial run, but something I want to start doing pretty regularly. I go pretty hard on the articulation part. I have, I feel like calling it a pet peeve is diminishing the importance, making it personal, but I don't like this stuff flipping, spinning, getting twisted, which is going to happen, but you can make it take longer. Jesse's going out. I've had this on a few videos, but basically tying in one wire, looping in, and then getting that first wire getting tied in a little down the bend, and then the next wire getting tied in a little higher, and that way they're affixed at 2 points. So it's kind of like coming from down here and then coming from up here. So it's not like you're tying it in from the side, and they just move too much. That's a move my buddy calls the crack pipe. I put a little bone dry on that wire, but it's still snipping me. I could have just cut it off up here, but I didn't. Here we are. So someone had commented with a question on the dungeon video that asking about a marabou wing in the back, and I was like, yeah, I mean, I do think about it, and then I don't, but then other times I do think about it, and I do. And with deer hair heads, especially, not especially, I've gotten the deer hair heads to where I like them. With synthetics, changers, and a fly like this, I definitely err on a little too much. I mean, after I tie a pattern enough, you get to where you're happy. Um, But you can, with synthetics, there's no taper involved. So if this is a little too, after the whole thing, if it's a little too clunky, if the taper is, then I can come in here and trim out a little bit of this stuff, or, trim off some of the brush. And I have almost every, if I don't have scissors on my boat, I'm, I tend to forget my nippers. Less of forgetting and more of just the getting ready to get out the door equivalent of 20 car pile up. So I really like to avoid with flies that this is going to be meant to, and so it's going to have a tall profile versus cylindrical. And on these bottom ties, I'll get a little more aggressive with the front and the the bulky brush stuff. But on that bottom tie, you can put two to avoid ripping your hands up on that hook, but I really like to spread that thing out because the hook bend doesn't compress. So when that material goes around it, I actually started noticing it on the articulated Crelex version 1.0, which is just a made up number. I've been making up fly names because YouTube not requires, I should have a thumbnail. But on the articulated Crelex, I was like, what? This thing, it had a fish skull, which is a brass, it's like a cone head, except it's actually manufactured to, when you slide it on, there's more weight on the bottom. And it was kind of going sideways, and it's because my prop brush was getting hung up on the hook bend and causing, and it happens with changers too, with the support material. So I like to be pretty intentional about getting that stuff. We want silver in the back. So I've been going more towards like silver, or some light olive or something in the back, and then copper or gold in the front. This is for order for a client. So I'm going to make it uniform. If you have trouble tying in chenille or rabbit strips, after you put them in, you tie them, and then you get to cut them off, and it's like they want to keep going the other way. Tie them in the opposite way. So it almost feels like you're tying them in backwards. They lay down on the hook nicely. Or when you tie it in regular, wrap in reverse, but I don't like doing that. Krennic, which I'm pretty sure is the flash material in um, in the polar UV chenille, along with the UV. But I don't have the large size UV chenille. So I'm basically just doing a reverse tide flash over that medium. And then here I'll start to get pretty picky about what's happening. And less surface area. I want it skinny, and then I want it taller, more surface area on the top. And this is going to be covered with craft fur. A little heavy on this side. Been doing a couple different blends. The sculpting flash, the baitfish sculpting flash. It's pretty soft. It's pretty close to EP. And then I'll also do crystal hair, but it's a fly tires dungeon material. And this stuff is, you can put this in a dubbing loop or a brush and get it to a place where you can sculpt a head with a razor blade. And it, when you use it sparse, it does a great job of, just like any other support material. That's only held on by some 140 right there, so make sure to get that tag end. And with changers, with anytime I'm using synthetics, especially out of a brush, after I secure and do my best not to fry my thread 100 times. Using my customized ergonomically engineered, I was gonna break out the big guns with the dubbing brush, but we'll do the custom designed plastic comb. Not enough ass to it. Little piece of Velcro. I think this is female Velcro. I have the male end on the, this is the edge of my table. So now, this is more or less the head. Oh, we're going skinny on the sides. Less skinny, but not scraggly on the bottom. And then I've gotten myself in trouble before by not using a long enough tie of craft fur on the top wing and using the support brush. But part of this fly, a big part of this fly, is I wanted something that's not weighted, but you can bomb. And so I'm using the craft fur. Oh, this is that Fly Tires Dungeon Bronc fur. Woo! Where'd you go? Of course. I'm taking out the little fuzzies, but leaving the medium fuzzies. I'm kind of giving it a little hee-hoo right there. Basically making the butts tapered. Check this. Like that. Something really helpful with craft fur. Even more helpful if you're using GSP, which I'm not right now, but a little water. Water is cohesive and adhesive. means it sticks to shit and to itself. I keep saying that to my daughter whenever she notices something like throwing a rag, like a wet towel in the shower and it sticks to the shower wall. You can see her eyes just kind of. She's into it sometimes, but those are sneaking up to the front. So I'm going to grab this, ease off tension, pull it back, and then go with more tension there. There we go. We like that. She's done. That's not true. Little bit. Oh, oh, I have a magnet holding the hook, and it was. That gave me the bad chills. Strung fuzz in the front. So switching to GSP because I'm gonna have to get pretty sneaky with spacing here. Really, like none. I've just been overexposing time material. I'll get there. I've just been using this, four to eight wraps of this on musky flies for the heads. But this is about the right length, and I don't need any. So I'll just rip some off of this. And scientifically speaking, I'm ripping about a third too much because through the rip stacking process, I'm going to drop some. And really that's just straightening it out. If I were tying more than two of these, I would cut a chunk off. Whenever I'm using GSP and getting sneaky up on the head, I'm putting a couple whips in there and then pulling that tension back. And it just keeps the eye free. This amount of rip stacking is completely unnecessary. I'll just wind up with little stacks of this stuff sitting around the table. I'll get a phone call or start doing it's mostly phone calls that get me. I start talking with someone and then I'm just fidgeting, not paying attention, and rip stacking whatever's close to me. With the Velcro. So as thoughtful as I'm being, a big part of this fly was to tie something that with the swim bug, with the drunk, at least the way I like to tie it. A lot of the deer hair stuff, all the little things really matter, and I wanted something where it's just like, fuck it, get it on, see if it swims. That's the custom metal uh, Devon loop brush. So I had historically, for these craft fur heads, I would put a little UV flex on like I do in the back. But I also, with the water retention, using that as my weight, that's the momentum. I wanted something to provide friction in the air so that when you're casting it turns over, which you don't get when you have something that is heavy without any air resistance. And then a little bit of, I was just kind of starting to tie this as sort of a synthetic deceiver and just thinking about the properties of bucktail and how that stuff moves and what it, what the layering does and how if you have some bucktail here and it props up and then you have, how am I going to do this? Bucktail here, this bucktail ends and then it hits these tips and pulls them up, which is why it flares. So I kind of wanted something that's gonna do this and spread out that craft fur, because otherwise craft fur can be pretty matted down. into a cup of water. And this is not necessarily going to be how it looks in the water, but it does give me a very good idea of my general taper after the material is all. I'll probably cut some of these danglies off after it dries, but tell you what, that thing looks good. How about that matching hackle? Huh? Oh, nice, dude. 3 things you learn. Hmm. Better than 51 years. And this is why commercial time for me is so terribly unprofitable because I just can't do it in a way. Musky flies I can do just because typically doing between 4 and 6 at a time of the same pattern, same colorway, all that. But for these orders, this is for a guy that fished with me, and he fishes everywhere. Uh, so it's just kind of a grab bag of flies that he fished and really liked. So I kind of do stuff in stages. Like I have another back of a loaf. I don't really want to do another front one right now. And this is the back of a triple, kind of a triple mini, drunk and disorderly. God, I just got chills again thinking of that. I don't know why some of them I can gouge myself sometimes and draw some good. I've gotten close to the bar before, but this last one, uh, maybe I'm just sensitive today. So that's probably more visible. Is this going to focus? I'll do this for the rest of time. Focus. Enhance. But top wire tie-in point is here. No. And the bottom wire tie-in point is down here. I like to stop my wires pretty early to remind myself that you don't want to rush this head. I kind of want to go. I'm going to use foam. I really, as much fun as tying one of these is, and then having the rattle shatter. I like to avoid it at all costs because you're wrapping chenille around it, and so plastic rattles, and we have a debut of a new technique. This is genuinely how I tie. Just kind of whatever comes to mind. So did very much. I kind of wanted some like a peachy yellow theme, but then some whack of chartreuse. So we're gonna stick with that. Whack. Ah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then material for a variety of different flies, including a bunch of peanut envy stuff and a hank of ooh. I also like this hank. We'll use both. The more you can get flash to be all over the top, the better it is. I'm gonna reverse tie that. And I don't like putting, a however any inch piece of, a single flashlight. I like staggering it, and that's how Tommy ties it. And man, you watch those videos and you listen to this. I have said this on legitimately every time I've talked to anyone about fishing and tying. Um, you watch some of those videos and listen to these podcasts with that guy, and if you're of the mind to pay attention and take some of the little things that he says and explore them on your own, it can be very illuminating. I fish with him and he's super fishy, good dude, all that fun stuff, which is nice to see after you've been listening to someone foam rabbit first. If you are using GSP, use super glue. Rabbit and almost, almost. Hold on. This is like Frank's Red Hot. Just gonna leave that hanging. I like big rattles. Oh, the experimental. So these are plastic rattles that are loud as shit and plastic, so they don't shatter in your first cast into the juicy stuff. And they come with a little knob there to stick them on jigs. They're already kind of tough to fit, so I tend to go back over this middle part, and so I'm wrapping about half of it. So a couple things here. One, they like to yeah, polar chenille, dude. Tie it in. I'll go over that in a second. Uh oh, and then the huge rattle problem. Ah, right in front of me. Plastic rattles down to. So this is a size one. It's really not. This isn't a huge hook. So yeah, that's a big rattle. This dude, much shorter. And then that's with the same diameter BBs. So I kind of like that. Um, then they make this mini, super mini. I mean, I wouldn't have to screw around with anything. And yes, I cut the nub off. Um, I just got I just got a bunch and pulled out, however many, a dozen or so. And just sat there and pop, 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 pop. Now that can leave a hole, and then yeah. So I cut the nub off, and then this end, the non nub end, is dude. I've screwed around with so much of this stuff. I'm popping these off, and then I would epoxy the BB so that the movement was metal on metal as opposed to metal on plastic. You start to get to diminishing returns when you're spending a few minutes every rattle doing that. Anyways, after you cut the nub off, if there is a hole and you put bone dry in it, it's going to get inside the rattle, which is fine. Just make sure you're holding it up as opposed to doing it in any other position because it'll stick those BBs to the inside. But then just some marabou stuck on the. I know this looks like a lot, but the result I fished these on 20, 25. And for folks that fish with me, they know it can get uncomfortable because I'm really it's it takes people normally at least a few hours. Sometimes it's multiple trips to get comfortable with casting flies as close to the bank and also as in the fishy stuff as I want them to be. And so I'm sitting there saying that, stop short arming it. I need another 2 feet, need another 2 feet, need another foot and a half. I need another foot. I'll take another 6 inches. And we can get most of them, unless you sky one, which there's a bunch of casting work that can always be done to get, you know, little tight loops under trees and all that stuff. But epoxy on both sides to hold everything together. And then in order to distribute the force from whatever's going to happen, and instead of having this thing all fucking cattywampus, I like that word, I just take a little bit of foam, and it's going to compress. There are absolutely zero implications. You can sort of massage your wire and chenille tie in to do this, but I've started to totally skip that and instead just, if there is could be a competition for doing stuff, building things, tying, creating stuff out of foam and super glue, I would be. I might be better at that than tying flies. So I'm making that foam a little higher than everything else. And then as I put wraps on, it compresses down, and that rattle is not going to be held onto the shank with wraps of chenille and super glue. And then that front compressed a little more than I wanted it to, but I'll, I'm not going to get over that. It's also a little close to the front. The beauty of wrapping thread is that you can unwrap it. I got too excited. I started talking about building stuff out of foam, and yes, fully risking respooling my thread with a little bit of super glue on it. So that plastic and foam, those things really like each other. I'm gonna do a little more. I think one of the reasons that I really gravitated toward both deer hair and a lot of Kelly Gallup's videos, and flies from guys like Tommy and Blaine, and all gunner stuff, Josh Varner, is that if I were trying to do all of this as fast as I could, I would not have any fun. I'd be fucking stressed. I've done it before. It's not fun. It's stressful. And there's along the way, you're going through these steps, and there's absolutely you're going to come to a place where something could be better, but it's going to take longer. And when you're tying with the commercial time for trout bugs, thankfully with the hair bugs, I've after 4 or 5 years and lots of people fishing and seeing them in person and having their hands on them, I've gotten to a place where I can sell them for 20, $25. But I mean, even the peanut envies, I'm tying those just as thoughtfully, and it's not like they don't, they're not a super short tie. They can be, but you're skipping stuff, or you're doing stuff half-assed, and you see it. It's not just the overseas flies. You look at flies that are commercially tied by tires. Now here, I'm filling in some of these gaps on the base there. I shouldn't have put on super glue yet, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, you pick up flies, and I know I've been in this seat tying for 12, 16 hours a day, trying to get orders done, and it's multiple days of that. You're getting, I don't know, $1,000, but that's just revenue. No cost, none of your, how many flies have I tied that I didn't sell that go into being able to do that, hook costs, etc. It's just, it's not an easy way. And interestingly, really not interestingly at all, this makes complete sense. Musky flies, large bucktail flies, are priced in a way that, and Dan at Musky Fool, he pays tires quite well. He doesn't take a big margin, um, but all around, anywhere on the internet, they're tire they're priced in a way that reflects the cost of living in the U.S. because bucktail is not available in a commercially viable amount and with the consistency of other materials, and also tying with it is really hard. So you can't get. I mean, I haven't seen overseas tied musky flies, and so since that material and that type of fly is not available to be outsourced, it's musky flies are 30, $35, and it's because shit, some of these trout flies that I'm tying, when I get someone saying that they want to pay me $5 per peanut envy because they want to sell them for 7, I'm like, dude, you can eat shit. And I mean, I've done that. I did a lot of those orders, um, to keep the lights on while I was starting out guiding. But if I have the option, I'm going to do something else. I'm going back to yellow. All right, first flash, Krennic, gold, holographic, gold. This is a product of me continuing to do something I try to do regularly, which is the opposite of something I've been doing. And I was on a big kick of going copper and all types, holographic, Krennic, regular, um, and black holographic. It looks, and then like some pink or purple. It looks fucking dope. But yeah, I was just doing that for a while, and then I was like, let's do something that's super flashy and also really bright. Big shocker, it looks awesome. I think I'll be okay with. Now I'm gonna put some, just a little bit of green in there too. This I start feeling like Martha Stewart when I'm doing this. Just a little, just adds, it takes that yellow and turns it to kind of a tan overall. I'd say it's a good thing. I have one of these sectioned off and stuck to the side of the table. Oh my god. Bill, you hear that poor animal? You okay, buddy? Gosh. Peach? Peach mallard. I just spotted my little pile as I, maybe orange. These are all giants, anyways. Peach over yellow. Yep. Peach over orange. We're going to do one side with one and one with the other. And some lateral scale. Uh, I think I'm faster. I'm quicker to go to a smaller presentation like a clouser, but like my starting point of where I'd like the trout to be and where I'd like the smallmouth to be, um, is going to be um, another white dungeon. I think you can over engineer that thought process and start talking about the presence of bait fish in the system and all that stuff. Um, yeah, how about pre-spawn in the spring? Um, but yeah, what is that? 3.5 inches. I'm pretty quick to go. This is where I start to, with all of these decisions and thought processes I have to continue to check myself because I think that's how people get into um believing that they're right. And I have a buddy that I fish with a bunch, Jack, and a couple other dudes. It's got John here and Matt Riley up in Virginia. There's to keep your mind open and recognize that you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And if you know, a trout in particular, and I'm fishing, I'm going to go out after this fly and mouse. Like if I try something enough, not getting there with that. If I put in the time with a tactic or a fly, I feel like I'm going to either tweak it enough to start seeing payoff, or it will just, hey, let's start fishing this bank. Let's start poking around with this idea in mind. It you start to see how maybe that could be just as right or even more right than some of your other opposite ideas. So with smallies, what I do is I tend to go smaller. Um, for whatever reason, I feel like, you know, when I do know where they are and they're in their summer, their fall, they're moving, they're back in the spring, they're moving, back again between spring and summer, and the bite's not there. Doing a subtle presentation with, I mean, I've had people basically really slow rolling clousers, and I just wouldn't do that for trout. But as I'm saying that, I'm like, you know what, you should. So your smallmouth box is going to be, if you have questions about fishing your smallmouth flies for trout, I will, if you can imagine, talk your ear off about it. But generally speaking, I think that you will be able to pound trout with smallmouth flies, quote unquote. Anything bait fishy and crawdaddy, you're you are cooking. Let the record show that I got my cat, a cat door goes in the window, because I did this for too much of my income for too long. And every time I walked out of the room, I could even hear him through the window sometimes, scratching on the back door and hollering. But so now he he uses the cat door and I can hear it. And then he just comes up to this door and starts yelling at me. Just chilling back there. And another thing with smallmouth is that, you know, going up and fishing muskie in smallmouth water on the French Broad and fishing, you know, watch out, Bill. Articulated, Buford, or hollow. See you, buddy. And, you know, smallmouth comes out and crushes it. And then top water, you know, something that I would tend to, I would say, move toward with a little more confidence or faster in the decision making process for smallmouth. I was fishing yesterday. It was we got a couple eats in ways that I've seen before, and I'm having trout fishing these hair bugs, and then the drunk gets down, the swim bug stays. Depending on your retrieve, it can stay within a few inches of the surface. Same with the loaf. And I've had fish come all the way up to the surface. And yesterday I was just seeing that, and the water is muddy. So we're fishing spooks on conventional gear and a a swinging D with that big Rainey's popper head on fly. And before, it's because I was fishing with my buddy who had swinging D's tied. I didn't have any, and I was about to. Not that this matters at all. I was about to put on a Dahlberg out of the smallmouth box just because I know when it's that set of conditions with muddy water, it's you want to be on top for the trout. It's not about getting low. You want to give them a profile to come up and eat. What do I want? I want rabbit and I want something cool. I'm going back to that yellow. There's some sicko that works at Hairline. Red barred yellow. The groovy bunny strips are also awesome. And cue the tape of I don't know what the hell I'm doing sometimes. On this tie-in, I don't wrap opposite. I am going to put on GSP before I do this next part. This next part is worth paying attention to if you have ever tied this bug or are interested in tying this bug. So instead of wrapping, having your thread up here, I'm also going to tip this a little bit. Instead of having your thread up here and wrapping and trying to catch the rabbit, get that thing all the way cozied behind that rabbit strip before you start wrapping. And so you're wrapping in front of your thread. And then on this drunk, to get all the materials that I've put on here and do it in a way that is packed, not even compressed because it feels, but you are jamming stuff in here. Watch Tommy tie, look at his bugs. Shit, tie him sparse. I did it for a while. Probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of flies and thousands and thousands and thousands of casts. And just the continuation of let's keep exploring more flash, more rabbit. I like big hooks in the back, basically keeping some stability in the back that'll wobble when it's in current, but that front is going to be a little more free to move because you have that stability in the back. So here I am behind my rabbit and I've just wrapped over 3 times over itself. So I have a little wall, a rabbit wall, if you will. So I'm coming from behind this rabbit now. Catching. I'm going to spin this back. So that's 3 layers of rabbit. That's awesome, man. I joked with Tommy that I still wonder every once in a while if he's looking at some of this shit and just being like, man, that dude is just using the popularity of my fly for publicity. He's correct. I also fucking love tying this fly, and it is a monster in the water. But it's such a hard one to tie, and people haven't fished the swim bug yet, and this just has a reputation, and I love tying it, and I like taking pictures. So yes, sir, I'm going to try to grow my guiding business by taking pictures of deer hair that I wrap onto a hook and then chop off with a razor blade. It's working somehow, slowly. Now, oh yeah. Peach? I'd like for that to be a little longer. Yeah, this is gonna be it. And as far as carving heads, I tied one of these is on, yeah, this guy is on a size 2 up front, and it is a small hook. Size 1 does not leave you a whole lot of space. Size 1 odd is a good. I don't have any. I ran through 100 of them before. I have a lot of 2s and 1s left over. That 1 odd is a great hook for the 2, is the standard, the 2 hook platform. But yeah, that I retied that 3 times. Tied it, cut it, sucked, cut it off. Tied it, cut it, sucked, cut it off. I was I was happy with the third one. And that's, I mean, dude, I can't tell you how many times I've not only done that, but um just tie this fly in general. The only time it really feels quick and easy for me is if I am, I don't know, either if I stay up late tonight, um, or tomorrow, where I just sit down and bang out, 6, 7, 8, because I've tied a bunch of these. Mostly backs of the triples, so I'm queued up for it. But otherwise, finding the right hair and for me, right, wrong, or indifferent, the color that I want. That's barely cut it on the length. Pinching and pulling, pinching and pulling, and then blindly, right, through the center, pinching and pulling. You can get pretty liberal with that, with those wraps on the first tie in, because you're not going to be getting down close to the shank on that. And I do a number of whips there, keep that thing real corded up. So it basically creates a little dam. Sugar. I was going to move the camera, but each and ooh, some marigold. This is just great hair. Oh yeah. So big on the first, small on the next two. Long hair. Get rid of everything. Get rid of the short hairs, get rid of the underfur. It's not worth it. It never is. That's me reminding myself and also talking to myself. So all those hairs that are great hair, they are not long enough. And if I try to use them, then I just need to cut all of those long hairs. One, two, mash, pull, twist and mash and pull. And then walk that thread in front. So you have two wraps around the thread with deer hair in between your wraps. A couple whips there, and that deer hair is officially not going to fall off. This hook officially is not smooth at the eye. That's just kind of insurance for not knowing where exactly that broke. I'll go a little bit lighter on this one, but it's a pretty sizable amount of thread right there, and I'm right at the hook eye right now. Now I'm not. And I hadn't cinched this back. It's still kind of sort of loose. A little GSP, a little super glue. And that is officially not going anywhere. And I'm actually going to be switching the deer hair I'm using. That deer hair I used for the collar is pretty soft. I want something that is a little more rigid. And I tend to go a little narrower on the nose. So I can get away with just a little shorter. This is where we're flirting now. One down to compress it. Walk my thread back so I can get under the eye without catching any of the other spin. And then try to get it back through the middle of that first, what is now a stack. Mash, pull, twist, pull, pull and twist, mash and pull and twist. And after you get it around, like mostly around, you're still, we're being cautious, but so lots of manipulation. When I was first able to get whips, and even the first handful of wraps around hook eyes after putting a bunch of hair that was like over the hook eye, I thought I was God's gift to earth. This is it. And one of the reasons I don't go up to 200 strand is that it does get a little bulky, and I want to get super tight the eye. I think I can probably move you for this one. Weird. Garbage can that hangs on a screw off the table. Another important mashing, and you're just making things are where it wants to be because this is what happens after it gets wet and you can epoxy it, resin it in place, but um, you can generally get sometimes these hairs are just going a couple different ways, and if you want to get carried away, I don't normally, as I've worked with deer hair more, I don't do this, but you can take your bobbin and get through there as well. I'm not sure if that is going to be in focus or not, but whatever. Need me a freshie. Oh shit. Oh shit. Now if we can have it focused, that would just be. Probably won't be able to have our cake and eat it too, but it's all right. Real tight. And if I haven't been tying a lot of these, I'm going to have this in my hand at this point to make sure that my cut is level and flush with the eye. So bottom. And if you didn't get this super packed, couple options. One is just scissors to get it lined up. Another is putting Sally Hansen's on right now, and it becomes a little easier to cut. And if you have a little bit of that, like the base, the non-tips in your collar, that's totally fine. Better to leave some on and just start snipping away. Yeah, I mean that right there is going to cause a serious problem for a trout. I dyed this. Yeah, sick is right. These are really hard. If this wasn't like a regular, um, these are tough to. And if I didn't have a bunch in my box, these are tough to send out the door. All right, I'm gonna go check some rodents. James, and I don't know your name, Tennessee Fly Guy. Appreciate you guys. I'll be doing this again soon. Bye bye.